Africa smile.
12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu. Getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real.
With Tebogo Lekwaleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m.
5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color.
Vue d'Afrique with Joël Muteba.
We go to East and Central Africa.
Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
2100 hours Central African time. A very good evening to you. Warm welcome to the Friday edition of Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective, live from our headquarters here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Welcome to you. 60 minutes of the very latest news from here on the continent and across the globe as we bring you the news, the voices and the perspectives that matter. It's your world, your hours. So let us know what your thoughts are. And we will be bringing you in the next 60 minutes news of the United Nations as it marks 80 years since it signed the charter that established it. And we'll tell you about Mali's military leader giving himself an additional couple of more years to rule unconstitutionally. And we start with your top stories this hour. Gaza's main hospital that's still functioning, the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, has stopped admitting casualties after being encircled by Israeli forces. The BBC's Rashtu Abu Alouf has more.
The hospital last night announced that they are not receiving or admitting any more injured or dead people because the area was very dangerous. Now they are assisting the situation to see if they can start operating again. But just to give you a little bit about the hospital, Nasser Hospital is the only functioning hospital in southern Gaza. In addition to the Israeli troops around the hospital said yesterday that they are running out of fuel to run the essential operations.
And US President Donald Trump's tariffs have dominated the talks of the group of Southeast Asian nations, ASEAN in Malaysia. Many of the attendees have been threatened with import taxes of up to 50%. Trump has threatened 30% tariffs on South Africa if a new trade deal is not reached by the 1st of August. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, attended the Asian gathering. The BBC's Jonathan Head was there.
Marco Rubio did show up, and people often say that's half of the success of being involved in ASEAN, just going to meetings. But he had absolutely nothing to offer on tariffs, and that's the main concern. President Trump's tariff war, which is really what it is for these countries that are so export dependent, has completely overshadowed this ASEAN summit. There's enormous frustration about how erratic they are, how damaging they are.
And the thousands of mourners, including international guests, are expected to attend the funeral of South Africa's former Deputy President David Mabuza on Saturday. Mabuza, who died last week after a short illness, will be honoured with the official state funeral Category 2 with military honours in Mbombela. He will be laid to rest in a private ceremony at his family home in Barberton. National flags will remain at half-mast across the country until his burial. Chief Director of Communications at GCIS, William Baloy.
We have planned as government for close to 3,000 mourners, but obviously the number might be more, although we want to appeal, obviously, for people to use the relevant media platforms, those who are able to join from home. But up to thus far, we have planned for close to 3,000 people who will be in the stadium. In terms of the dignitaries, I can confirm that, for example, I know the Deputy Prime Minister of Eswatini will be among the mourners.
And Nigerians are increasingly facing difficulties in securing visas to several countries amid tightening of immigration policies. Key concerns include visa overstays, inadequate documentation, and national security risks. United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and the United Arab Emirates have all imposed stricter visa requirements as part of broader immigration crackdowns. Channel Africa's Nigeria correspondent Jonathan James Limagon has more.
The dexterity with which Nigeria is able to handle it will determine how it escalates or not. But the general belief is that given the U.S. interest in Nigeria, given Nigerians who are in diaspora in America, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes engagement that is happening, and a lot more will happen. And given also that this isn't the first time this has come about, it is generally believed that the situation is going to be ameliorated, is going to abate, and Nigeria says it is sharing the data it needs to share with the U.S., and it is open to do more if that is required.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
5 minutes past 9, still to come up on Africa World Hour. This hour we'll tell you about Mali's military leader, General Assimi Goïta, who's extended his hold on power by granting himself a renewable 5-year presidential mandate. We'll speak to Dr. Zumara Diarra about what this means for the country and, of course, implications for the continent at large. We start, though, in Zimbabwe, and the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, they're launching the State of World Population Report, highlighting a global drop in fertility rates, especially among young people. Titled The Real Fertility Crisis, the report links the decline to economic and social barriers, not a rejection of parenthood. It echoes Zimstat findings showing fewer Zimbabwean men willing to marry, raising concerns of a potential population crisis. More from our correspondent in Harare, John Kasim.
Zimbabweans have today joined the entire world in commemorating the World Population Day by launching The Real Fertility Crisis, the Pursuit of Reproductive Agency in a Changing World, a report that speaks on global population trends. The report reveals that 1 in 5 people globally will not be able to have the number of children they desire due to barriers such as high cost of parenthood and health care. Lack of quality jobs that bring about insecurities was also said to be one of the main challenges among males. Interestingly, 15% said they could not have children because they were yet to find suitable partners. However, the biggest barriers are economically inclined, forcing people to have fewer children than they wanted. At least 40% of the respondents said they could not marry and have children owing to the economic challenges. These findings mirror the situation in Zimbabwe, where couples, especially in urban areas, are reducing the sizes of their families. Apparently, this report is expected to help Zimbabwe formulate policies that help couples to make informed decisions. The main challenge in Zimbabwe at the moment is that both pregnancy prevention and family formation are not covered by any legislature. Currently, Zimbabwe does not have a comprehensive population policy that talks about housing and health policies. Zimbabwe does not have an infertility index and still using the 2021 rates showing 2 in 3 women having infertility challenges. Dr. Mpeta, UNFPA program specialist on reproductive health, had this to say.
When it comes to infertility issues, we are not doing so well. So even around the health, our approach when it comes to health services related to fertility are not comprehensive enough. The other issues affecting policies around to the level of support, particularly for operationalizing the policies that are insufficient. And policies are often too short to have an impact. Health care policies should facilitate full range of affordable, quality, accessible reproductive health services everywhere. Issues also to do with economic policies are important, and we need to support youth transitioning to adulthood. Zimbabwe, for instance, has a very young population. 2/3 of the populations are under 30 years old. And therefore, it's very important that employment is created for this youthful population and also they are economically empowered if Zimbabwe is to reap the demographic dividend.
Dr. Douglas Mombeshora, Minister of Health and Child Care, admitted Zimbabwe was facing fertility challenges that require addressing.
The Zimbabwe National Family Planning Council remains pivotal in coordinating and delivering essential programs. It has made significant strides in engaging both parliamentarians and junior parliamentarians, thereby keeping population and reproductive health priorities at the forefront of the policy agenda and fostering the meaningful participation of young people in decision-making processes. However, our journey is far from complete. As highlighted in the 2025 SWOP report, fertility decisions are shaped by a complex interplay of economic uncertainty, social expectations, and access to quality services. The report reveals that many young people wish to start families but are constrained by structural, cultural, and economic challenges.
Reporting for Channel Africa News in Harare, Zimbabwe, this is John Kasim.
At 11 minutes past 9, let's go to our top story this hour. We mentioned earlier on the latest ongoings in Mali with regards to democratic processes there, or lack thereof. The military leader, General Assimi Goita, has extended his hold on power by granting himself a renewable 5-year presidential mandate without elections through a controversial new law. The move comes despite earlier promises to return to civilian rule next year and follows a crackdown on political parties and pro-democracy activists. As Mali grapples with ongoing jihadist insurgencies and deepening political instability, this latest development raises serious questions about the country's democratic future and regional security. To speak a little bit more about the implications of this political shift and what it means for Mali's governance, civil society, and of course regional stability, we're joined now by political analyst Dr. Zumara Diarra, speaking to us from Bamako. A very good evening to you, Dr. Diarra. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Very interesting that this development comes hot on the foot of what we just saw recently, the U.S. West Africa summit, of which we are often told that the United States frowns upon undemocratic moves or developments. So how do you think this would be taken by the U.S. leader Donald Trump? Dr. Diarra?
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Diarra. I'm asking you how you think this latest news or developments will be interpreted or at least received by the United States, given that it's right on the back of a summit with the U.S. leader by West African countries.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. From my point of view, it's a new diplomatic strategy that United States leaders plan to develop towards African countries, especially West African, accepted the Gabon country.
I'm asking this question because the United States often touts itself as the beacon of democracy, of civilized governance. How will the U.S. president, do you think, receive the news that Mali's military leader has unconstitutionally extended his rule over the country?
From my point of view, this decision will not be well received by the American government because this government always pointed out certain of democratic values like election organization, and in our context, is not the case. I don't think that it would be a very good decision when we point out the democratic values.
Okay, so
But Malian situation is a specific context.
let's talk about that context then. This law, tell us a little bit more about it. How was it effected?
This decision came in the context of generalized insecurity, economical problem, etc. And it is not Malian only case. So there are the other countries from Sahelian, and since 2020, we are under in the military governance.
Okay, do you have more detail on the law itself, what it stipulates, and how General Goita was able to use it to secure himself another couple of years at the helm of power in Mali?
The law is very clear. It means this transition can go until 5 years, renewable, as soon as the security situation is not improved. And it also said that the members of the government, the members of the parliament can be candidates of the eventual presidential election or parliamentary election.
So would you agree that it is a further move on restricting political freedoms in Mali?
As defenders of human rights, I don't agree about some practice which consists to fight against dissident opinion. I don't agree with this method. But on the other hand, the situation is very complex because of the combat against terrorism, insecurity, economical problem, etc.
So General Goita in May signed a decree dissolving all political parties. So you are saying this latest move is not a further entrenchment of restricting political freedoms?
Yeah, it's a kind of a restriction of political freedom. But I hope the authorities will work to create a new legal framework for political parties. Public opinion is very divided over the dissolution of the political parties. Supporters of the authorities are in favor, while opponents, especially the leaders of the former political parties, are opposite.
So how would you then describe the political and civic landscape in Mali? Are people free to dissent? Are you saying that the country is evenly divided between those who support and agree with the actions taken by General Goita and those who are against?
As far as I'm concerned, the situation, the political situation is very tense because of the division between those who are supporting the authorities and the other who are against the military politics, the governance, the system, the political governance. But it's I think it's an exceptional period that we call exceptional time for our political life.
Okay.
I hope that authorities will do their best to organize a new legal framework for political parties and other human rights, etc.
Thank you, Dr. Zumara Diarra. He's a political analyst speaking to us from Bamako. He says the latest moves by Mali's military leader, General Assimi Goita, may be frowned upon by the United States, which, as he says, is very much pro-democratic processes. But he says it does not necessarily mean that it is suppression of democratic rights within Mali, saying that there are those who may be in agreement with General Goita's moves to dissolve political parties, but saying that he does hope that there will be further legal frameworks to better the situation. It's 22 minutes past 9.
When the sun goes down, we don't stop the talk. Channel Africa, the best nighttime radio. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, BADEA, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, he is vying for the presidency of the African Development Bank, the AFDB. He positions himself as a fervent defender of economic integration and structural transformation on the African continent.
So I do believe that I have a 360 view of the development challenges in the continent with my experience from both the supply side and the demand side. But more importantly, my vision is to bring on board all the stakeholders and to have a holistic approach for the development of the continent and to develop partnership across the continent and outside the continent, bringing all the stakeholders together to work for one goal is to make Africa great for life and livelihood of the African population.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
23 minutes past 9, and we look at an anniversary that one would consider the anchor of our current multilateral system. We're talking about the United Nations recently marking 80 years since the signing of its charter at a time when the world faced rising conflict, deepening inequality and growing threats to human rights. Part of this milestone, the United Nations launched the UN 80 initiative, a reform process aimed at making the organization more efficient and relevant. But for many in the human rights and peace-building community, there are growing concerns that critical protection roles, particularly those related to atrocity prevention, could be weakened or sidelined. To speak more about what is at stake, we're joined now from New York by Dr. Savita Ponde, who is Executive Director of the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect. A very good evening to you, Dr. Ponde, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
So, as I mentioned, some of the context within which the United Nations exists, what would you say is the biggest threat, not only to its relevance, but for the role for which it was established?
So that's a fantastic question to begin with, and the credibility, the legitimacy of the UN depends on its role in human rights, its role in the protection of the most vulnerable populations around the world, and prevention and response to mass atrocity situations. I mean, you may remember the failures of the UN in Bosnia, in Rwanda, still haunt it till today. Right now, given what's happening in Gaza, and the failure of the UN Security Council, not the Secretariat, has been center stage in how the international community has not been responding to the crisis, the atrocities that are being committed against the Palestinian. So the role of the UN in maintaining peace and security, in promotion of human rights, and in the protection of the most vulnerable is at the center of its raison d'etre. That is the reason it was created. When it was created, sort of the voice of the people said that this organization would be instrumental in saving future generations from the scourge of war. And the report card is not completely a failure. The report card has been mixed. I mean, even today, people around the world, affected communities around the world, look at the UN and look at it from a perspective of an organization, a space, a forum that can provide them with protection. That is, in some cases, the only avenue open to many populations around the world, from Myanmar to South Sudan to Sudan, that whether there are so many national processes that are not happening or are completely absent, it is the UN which stands for that protection. So in this UN80 reform process, our appeal to the decision makers and people who are part of the strategy of reforming the UN is that they place these norms, these ideas at the center of any reform process. Many of these norms are hard-won diplomatic victories, and they should not be diluted, but rather this is a moment to strengthen them even further. If the UN has to do less with less, then the resources that are there should be focused on its primary purpose, which is to be the voice of the people. The charter.
Allow me to jump in then and ask the question. You mentioned the fact that, there are losses and there are gains. And it's a good thing that the UN itself is undertaking this navel-gazing exercise. But the question is, in as much as it is appreciated, there have been some major moves in terms of increasing representation, particularly of developing nations. But you mentioned what is happening in Gaza. The fact that people have often said what is happening in Yemen, people who are suffering in Yemen are seen as forgotten. Sri Lanka is one of those places where the United Nations itself would agree that it has failed. But the geopolitical fragmentation, has it been growing, or was there never enough to begin with as a foundation?
Because that's a really good point to start with, to say that because UN is inherently a political organization, and the politics of the world, the international relations of the world are reflected in the organization. So UN is, in many, many cases, a sum of its parts. The tension in the multilateral system is a reflection of the tensions that are taking place across the world in other forums too. So it's not as if we had a period of the Cold War in which, you did not see the UN rising to its potential. In the 90s, we did see the UN rising up to its potential, and we did see UN broker peace, remake, reshape countries, bring about really long-term sustainable change for a lot of people in a lot of places, from Latin America to Africa to Asia. But you're absolutely right. The fragmentation that we are seeing, that what UN right now is going through is not only a financial crisis, but it's also a crisis of political will. It's a crisis of where the world is at in terms of the fragmentation of international will to actually preserve peace. And it's not just about the big, powerful countries. We are seeing it play out in many different parts of the world, where people are taking advantage of a moment where you're seeing this sort of, big power rivalry playing out in many different geographical situations.
And the fact that some of these global legal conventions or protocols, which are supposed to help the United Nations in the strategic advisory role that it plays, is that part of the problem, that a lot of what the UN discusses and concludes is not enforceable, it's not legally binding?
So the Security Council resolutions, the resolutions which are adopted by Security Council, are legally binding. The General Assembly resolutions are not binding, but the Security Council resolutions are legally binding. But it's just it's the same case when you have domestic laws. You can have the best laws, but you also need implementation and enforcement. It's the same thing with the United Nations. So you can adopt the best UN resolutions, but if they're not implemented or not respected or not enforced, then they are toothless. And that's what we are seeing playing out in Gaza. It's not as if we've not had some resolutions on Gaza. They've just not been implemented, and they've not been reinforced by parties like the United States, which can actually reinforce them. So that's where the problem exists. You can have the best laws, but again, the question is reinforcement.
And as you say, that they are legally binding, and I'm glad you raised the issue of Gaza, and there are many others where the Security Council would have made even decisions that would have taken very long to arrive at, but the implementation, but on whom is the accountability then, if we're saying the resolutions are there, but people are just not abiding by them?
I think that the responsibility lies with the permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council. They have a right to veto resolutions, but that right also comes with a ton of responsibility. And what we are seeing is that the 5 permanent members are consistently failing. I mean, be it Russia or China, Russia and Ukraine, and sort of the Russian aggression in Ukraine. In the context of Myanmar, we see China playing a role. In the context of Gaza, we see the United States vetoing all resolutions. So I think that I strongly believe this, that the veto comes with a responsibility, and what we are not seeing, we are just seeing the issuance of a certain kind of power which comes with the veto, but what we're not seeing is the responsibility which also comes with the veto.
I mean, there's a lot of talk about reform of the United Nations. So it's one thing to talk about the core functions of the United Nations, the daily functions of the United Nations, but what about the moral authority or the moral responsibility of the United Nations? You talk about the veto carrying members and how they are failing in strengthening the United Nations and the unique role that it plays in carrying out some of these resolutions. So isn't it time that the United Nations then, in doing the self-reflection, look at its failure to spread representativity of those who can hold it accountable?
Absolutely. But I mean, the reform process, so there are 2 different processes here. So the UN80 process is very much looking at how the Secretariat of the United Nations functions, how there can be, certain changes made which are being compelled because of this budget crisis, but how those changes can actually sharpen some of the activities, the purpose of the UN. And for me, working in this field, the purpose of the UN is around promotion of human rights and protecting the most vulnerable, which carries the primary responsibility of peace and security in the world, which is consistently failing, needs to be reformed. But again, you have the big power politics, and that reform seems very far away still. I mean, the conversations have been going on of this reform for the last 30, 40 years, and we are nowhere close. Yes. And even if there's a reform of the UN Security Council, what we will not see is the power of veto going away. What we will see is either the power of the veto is expanded further, or it remains with the same 5 characters,
Right. Dr.
or same 5 countries.
Dr. Savita Ponde, really appreciate your time and sharing your thoughts with us. Much, much appreciated. She's the Executive Director of the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect, speaking to us live from New York about the United Nations 80th anniversary of the establishment of its charter.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Tulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Tulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
And of course, speaking about AI, that's what our next conversation is going to be about. That'll be in just a moment. We're going to talk about the intersection between food and artificial intelligence. But for now, let's tell you about this. SABC Sport bringing you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about Springboks telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history makes shine. All right, let's tell you about this fascinating story. So as we look at the future of food and where artificial intelligence is no longer behind the scenes, but actually in the kitchen. So Dubai has just launched what it's being called the world's first restaurant operated by an AI chef. But here in South Africa, something equally futuristic has been at play for quite a while, delighting audiences for years. The Petit Chef, it's a dining experience where a tiny animated French chef cooks through this theatrical tech meets culinary phenomenon. Paul Rousseau is that man behind Le Petit Chef South Africa. Paul, welcome to you and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening to Sipho. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks, Paul.
Awesome.
Okay. So let's talk about this Dubai story. I mean, it caught my attention and just the idea. I mean, we've heard of 3D printing of burgers, etc. But an AI chef running an entire restaurant. What do you think about that? Or does it come as no surprise seeing that you've been in the business for quite a while?
I think it's awesome how technology is taking over and how different the presentation is for a guest who hasn't had an experience where there's been an involvement of some kind of technology in the development and showcasing of the food. It's incredible what people are coming up with in order to entertain the guests these days. Le Petit Chef was absolutely instrumental in starting the whole idea around projection and service of food. And what they've now done in Dubai is taken it to the next level. So, yeah, incredible. Amazing. I'd love to experience it myself. I haven't yet.
So tell us about how you started with Le Petit Chef. What were the origins and was AI already at play? Tell us about the journey.
So Le Petit Chef started in 2017 when two Belgian artists actually put together animation and projected it onto a tabletop and onto a dinner plate with 3D mapping and augmented reality, and it had never ever been seen before, and it just went crazy worldwide. And to date, we now have 99 stores that are open worldwide, and obviously in South Africa, we've got our store open in Johannesburg. But it's been an incredible journey. It went ballistic on social media. YouTube, there's billions of views. And as a result of that, people just can't get enough of what we deliver.
And so, what is the reaction when people see this 6 centimeter tall chef running around on their plates? And tell me practically what exactly is happening?
So Le Petit Chef is the smallest chef in the world. He's 58 millimeters big, so he's about the size of a toothpick. And he's 3D animated, so he comes out and he tells a story. We've got about 5 stories at the moment, and we're working on another 3. So every story is completely different. So if you have experienced one of our stories and you return, you're not going to have the same experience that you've had before. We serve a 6-course meal, and basically this little animated chef tells the story and we present the food according to what he's cooked on top of your plate.
So that's what I want to understand. And now that we spoke about AI, is that part of the experience? Because it's almost magical, mystical when I watch it happen. And obviously I've never experienced it, but I'm just imagining from what you're telling me and from the audiovisual material that you've sent us. So that's the mystical part of it. But then the switch over to my actually being able to eat what I've just seen, how does that happen? And you don't have to give away the secrets, but just,
That's the trickery, and that's the best part, because that's where we get very creative. So, as a show producer, I will take the animations that have been developed by Skill Mapping in Belgium and then interpret those in order to showcase and try and mimic what the audience or what the guest has experienced in the visuals. So now we present it, and that's where the wow factor comes in, because people can't actually believe that they are now going to eat from propped food that obviously mimics exactly what they've just seen in projection. So it is a big wow factor, and that's where we get all of the the interest by the people that have experienced it, because it's just so unexpected and they can't understand how it's become a reality from something that was projected.
And from Belgium to South Africa, how do you interpret that? How do you make the experience local and lekker? And how does it also translate into the flavor? Or do you take people on a tour around the world, wherever it takes you?
So we very definitely look at the localized area that we're in, and we do develop the menu according to the palate. So, we know in South Africa that South Africans enjoy food. They're not going to be happy with a nouvelle cuisine presentation. They want to enjoy a full plate of food. So we make sure that, a little bit of South Africa is actually showcased within the menu that we prepare. But the beauty of the product is that it can be manipulated to wherever it's showcased. You would have a very different experience if you were in Switzerland and enjoying Le Petit Chef in Geneva to what you would have if you were having it in South Africa. So each region has specifically geared the menu and influenced the presentation according to where we're showcasing.
And I'm just wondering, you and Dining SA, if we're talking about fine dining, tell us about the innovation, evolution that you have seen and you're working with. And is there a role for the inducement or partnership with AI to achieve greater heights in this regard?
Absolutely. I think, when you see how clever people are being with experiential dining, there's very definitely an AI influence that can creep in. And if you just look at some of the social media AI that's happening, where you can create yourself as an animated character running around, squirting chocolate over a croissant or whatever, the sky's the limit. It's going to keep on. The idea is that you've got to keep on wowing people, and people are very creative when they're trying to impress. And I think that the ability of AI to showcase food delivery has only just begun. We've only just touched the top of the iceberg. It's going to be amazing. The stuff that we're working on alone, we're always cutting edge and trying to come up with innovative ideas that nobody's ever seen before, because that's how we keep the interest. And just some of the ideas that our crowd are working on are unbelievable. So, I think, honestly, the sky's the limit.
And as we wrap up, so you've been ahead of the curve in this. What would please you to just keep this evolution going? What would you love to do with AI, with South African history, culture, particularly when it comes to food? As you say, we love our food, and also do tell us where we can experience all of this, the Petit Chef and the show that you put on.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I would love to do is I'd love to develop something that was South African. Very definitely we've got an incredible story, an incredible history in the country. Even touching on things like Littlefoot and all of the evolution that's taken place out of the cradle of humankind, something like that. And we develop a storyline that is very, very geared towards the South African history. That would be my ultimate dream. And I think, the drumming and just the whole feel of Africa needs to come through. And then we need to showcase that to the world so we can actually use it as a marketing opportunity for this is what South Africa is all about. So I would love to see that happen. Presently, we're obviously working off what we have, which is very European influence, because obviously it was developed in Belgium. I was lucky enough to produce a show called Au Naturel, where I very definitely brought in some South African aspects into the show. So that was my starting point, and it flew. People loved it. So that's why I say I would really like to start a show that showcased South Africa.
All right. And just a quick one, Paul, where can we experience Le Petit Chef?
So Le Petit Chef at the moment is in Johannesburg at the Blueberry Hill Hotel, which is in Honeydew. And the easiest thing to do if anybody's interested in trying to see the show is to go onto our website. It's dinnertimestories.co.za. If you can't remember that one, remember lepetitchef.co.za. And that'll take you to the exact same landing page, and all of the information as well as the booking links to book tickets through the ticketing agent are on that website.
Certainly a bucket list thing for me to do, Paul. Paul, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Paul Rousseau is the man behind Le Petit Chef. And we're talking about the robot chefs in Dubai to miniature 3D ones in Johannesburg. It's clear that food isn't just about taste anymore. It's about experience, imagination, and even a touch of AI.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
The Shy Guy, a Morning Switch. Have you ever listened to a song and then it gives you goosebumps? Because it takes you way back in the 80s. My goodness. Hey, baby. You hear Yvonne Chaga Chaga there. I wanna talk to the DJ. And then the DJ goes like, hey baby, I've got you on the other side. Huh? There were no WhatsApps then, right? There were no sliding in the TMs at the time. Oh man.
Your weekend mornings are activated with the Shy Guy on the Morning Switch. Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
All right, 18 minutes past 9. We continue with the Friday edition of Africa World Hour. So tonight we put the spotlight on a bold voice in African cinema, Karabo Ludiga, whose a deeply personal and visually arresting debut feature, Sabbatical, has just been acquired by Amazon Prime Video for exclusive streaming across sub-Saharan Africa. After a celebrated world premiere at the International Film Festival in Rotterdam, screenings in Germany, and now heading back to Black Star Film Festival in the United States. Sabbatical is not just making waves, it's redefining what African storytelling can look like on the global stage. Let's take a listen. Okay, well, I was hoping that we would give you...
Miss Tao is one of this program's biggest successes. She started as an intern, and now she's on the CEO track. A great example of how far you can get if you work hard here.
Bruce, my accounts are frozen. What is going on?
Wait, what? It's a routine investigation. Just lay low and just wait for this to blow over.
I'm sorry, man.
So, one of the changes in the ability to account for that.
Wi-Fi password it changes.
Okay, and we're joined now by filmmaker Karbo Lidiga to talk about ambition, reckoning, and of course, quiet revolutions inside Sabbatical. You've just heard a snippet of what the film is all about. Karbo, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us on this Friday.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me, Tsepiso.
And congratulations on landing that Amazon Prime slot. That's quite a phenomenal thing. So what does it mean to you and how did it come about?
I guess we make films for, international accolades, initially. And then we realize it's really for people in South Africa to watch, So I'm quite thrilled that people can actually access the film. We had a cinema run in May. We had an opening over Mother's Day where people could watch, but not a lot of people went because cinema's not really doing well. So this is a great opportunity for us to get a chance for local audiences to watch it, and obviously our neighbors in the SADC region. So I'm thrilled because the comments are always great. It's always fun to hear what people think of the film, yeah.
And it looks like a very fun and engaging storyline. And I want you to tell us a little bit more about the characters because I see you've got a phenomenal cast there as well.
So the premise of the film is around Lesego. She's a corporate hand, as we call it in the city, in her mid-30s. She arrives home, not quite herself, an hour away from her high life in Sandton, Johannesburg. And her home is somewhere in Pretoria North, in the house that she grew up with, raised by a single mom who's very proud of Lesego. She worked really hard to get her into banking, investment banking. There's something that Lesego is not telling her. She doesn't look herself. She's a bit disheveled. Their hair is a little bit not presentable as our parents would like it to be, And as the film continues, realize that she is being thrown under the bus in a fraud case at the bank where she works, and she's keeping the secret. But there's an investigator played by Loyiso Gola who's kind of on her trail, coming to perhaps, unearth Lesego's real life or what it's become, The lead is Mona Munyani, who plays Lesego, and her mom is Clementine Musimani.
And I see Miss Clementine there, Okara, she's got a boyfriend or some love interest played by an equally formidable actor. Give us just a taste of that storyline, that tidbit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I wanted the mom in this childhood home to have moved on with her life, to have a full life and to be really loved, by Ntate Gabriel Mutau, who used to kind of be a handyman last time Lesego checked, but she doesn't come home enough to realize that now he's walking out of her mom's bedroom, and they're making a love. They're kind of creating
maintaining the household in a different manner.
Yes, in a better way, yes. Yes, exactly. Played by Sputla Sibodi really well. And I wanted like an elderly kind of love element in this film, which kind of they play really well. They've played a couple of times in their lives, in their careers. So they gelled really well, yeah.
And I want to talk about playing away from home or, a different home. So, and I'm going to use that analogy to look at the premiere at Rotterdam. So Sabbatical making it to top 20 audience choice list. Taking a South African story or storyline to a different cultural setting, what are the challenges and what are the triumphs, as you say, that you are writing something for international accolades?
I think it's for me, it's quite affirming to make it quite localized when you watch it. And even if you watch the trailer, you'll realize that it resonates quite a lot. I wanted to create something that reminds people of their moms, of their homes, their kind of work stress. We use Pitori, we use house music. We've got like very localized. We use Bokane Taya to make the music. So, and it's something that we learned at Different, especially with films like Matwetwe, for instance. That they play really well internationally because they're honest. People are curious about how we really live. They're like, oh, is this what's happening since Nelson Mandela kind of died or came out of prison? You know what I mean? They know the big stories, but the intricacies and nuances and complexities of our lives, they find really fascinating. So I think that's why it played really well. And I really stay away from stereotypes. I don't do violence or, the R word or murder, that kind of stuff. It's like a gentle and nuanced and soft storytelling and quirky, So the challenges I thought I'd have in explaining or over-explaining, really, I was surprised not to have. They just took it on. And also they relate because they have mothers, they are daughters, they have work stress, so the story has very many universalities.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because just thinking about the Black Star Film Festival in the United States, sometimes you meet, and I have to say it's a fact, you meet a lot of ignorant Americans who literally still think we live in a jungle. And South African humor is so special, it's so unique. I mean, you have to be South African to laugh out loud. Do they get it though? Because as you say, some there are similarities in some situations, but South African humor is really special.
Sometimes I feel like these kind of films could be penalized, almost like we pretentious. Like, no, this can't be real. Like, where's the real Africa? So I feel like a lot of the film festivals might feel like it's aspirational, like the way we live, or like, I don't know, suburban lifestyle.
You don't have those beating drums and loincloths.
Yeah, no. Where is the pain? Where's the flies? I feel like they find stereotypical depictions of Africa more palatable or understand, and that's like a fact. So you're absolutely right. So the work that I do and many of my colleagues do is kind of push these stereotypes. It's hard. You're right. It's hard to say we are many other things, many. And they struggle with it, but we keep pushing.
But tell me then, what are you pushing towards? What's next on your list of what you want to conquer, what you want to do, not only locally, regionally, but on the international stage?
I think I'll constantly try to tell these kind of stories, kind of funny, dark, real, in many other ways. I'm being hired by Blingola and Kui Films. There are two production companies that are adapting Kopana Matla's Coconut, the novel, very similar kind of themes, and the coconut conundrum kind of being something that's old but still very relevant now, and the dream deferred, but also through a quirky kind of funny lens. So I'm excited about that. So it'll always be similar projects but with very vastly different storylines, in almost trying to create a path and a voice for myself. Yeah.
And Karaba, I have to ask you this, and I'm sure you've been asked this. Lidikha, another famous Lidikha, are you related?
Oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm kidding. Yes, that's my only brother. We've been working since the Pio Minati show. He is one of the producers of this film. Actually, it's made by his company Different, along with Tams and Anderson. So yes, we've been working for years together, and he's a big part of this film. Yeah.
And I mean, I wanted to ask that because not to take away from your shine, but I'm sure some people are probably wondering, the humor in it, would it have been inspired by a comedian brother?
I think perhaps our very funny mother, who made really odd children out of Soshanguve, but I guess Soshanguve being what it is, also adding to our humor. But yeah, he's a huge influence in my life, Probably one of the most constant mentors, as a big brother. We fought a lot, but he carves really amazing, bright paths for me, and I'm always honor him in everything, all the interviews. Yeah, so yeah, he's
fantastic.
Cool.
Fantastic. All the best, Karabo. Lovely chatting to you. And
Thank you
Karabo,
so much.
speaking about her big brother, Kagiso Lidige, well-known comedian here. And she's speaking about her phenomenal film, Sabbatical, that's going to be aired on Amazon Prime Video. And it's already been to the International Film Festival in Rotterdam, screenings in Germany, and as we mentioned, now heading to Black Star Film Festival in the United States. That is Sabbatical, making waves. And that's how we come to the end of Africa World Hour this Friday. Up next is Hotlines, Love After Dark with Shayla and Dukumana. I should have said that in a more sultry voice.
I know. I was...
Shayla and Dukumana.
Clearly, you having a good Friday. I love it for you.
You know, you just have to... You have to grab it for yourself, because if you don't, hey man, before you know it, you wake up and it's Sunday and you are just, you feel like you've done nothing with your weekend.
Sure. Okay, so what to expect on Hotlines? So you spoke about grabbing. I want to ask you a question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, not
It's
love
not
related.
It's not PG rated.
Listen, very
Okay.
friendly, very mindful.
Grab me, girl.
So when you are looking at social media and you are noticing that not only celebrities living this high-end life, that influencers have stepped into the space, do you sometimes feel pressured to want to,
Can I tell you the truth? I
Tell me the
sometimes don't
truth.
even know the difference between celebrities and influencers, because I suppose I come from a generation where they were professionals, and sometimes there is such a confusion of the two. Like, I'm a journalist, and somebody would say, "Oh, aren't you?" No, I'm a journalist. You know, so I find it very hard to distinguish between what are you being celebrated for. There's one thing for being celebrated for the great work that you've done, but people have also taken away that essence. So now you are you've appeared for 5 seconds and you're driving a Jeep and you're wearing your designer wear, and they say you're a celebrity. What are you being celebrated for? And then they say you're an influencer. What are you influencing? Whom are you influencing?
I think that conversation altogether on its own is something we can discuss, but I do think that they do have presence, and what they do is they steer crowds, and this is why they will continue to be celebrated. But the focal point for tonight is, does this bring about pressure for the ordinary Joe on the ground to now want to live this celebrity-like lifestyle, right? Because influencer X, who lived next door, is now in a Jeep. I feel the need to buckle up and now start working, 16-hour shifts so that I too can buy my Jeep, whereas I'm just tiring myself out.
And for me, that is an important anchor point, because what are we teaching our children? Because if you're feeling pressured, what do you understand that celebrity next door does? If they are doing something. Do you get what I'm saying? Because the people who really do work hard, shoulder to the wheel all the time, and in their lifetime, they'll never see those rewards, those trinkets. So I suppose for me, that's where I'm coming from. Like, okay, I see you've got that, and good for you, enjoy it. You know, but for me to feel like I'm not doing anything with my life, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too used to the graft.
And that's what comes up on the show tonight with our panel.
Oh, it'll be great to listen to hear what people are thinking about that. Shayla and Dukumana coming up in just a moment with Hotlines from us. It's good night for now.
Hotlines bring you fresh perspectives about love after dark with Shayla Dukumana.
And find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shayla Dukumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising.
Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9.
Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day.
At mid-morning,
We get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people,
and the things that make Africa smile.
12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4,
Live and real with Tebogo Lekwaleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m.
5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color.
Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba.
We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m.
Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9.
We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla.
And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines
with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till
across time